One of the best things that NASA has ever done is send multiple craft into space to where we can learn more about our solar system, our galaxy, and the universe at large. Through these instruments, we have gained all sorts of knowledge, and as a result, we're eager to see what they can do next. For the next two Voyager craft, they've been doing their job for decades now. And with Voyager 2, it's near its own death, if you will, and yet still revealing interesting things. Allow us to show you Voyager 2 finally sent back new images from space. The Voyager probes. An overview. Voyager 1 is a probe that humanity sent out to observe the universe at large, and it's currently well past Pluto and has shown us many things about our solar system. In 2017, it was set at around 138 AUs from our planet. AU means astronomical unit, which in this case means the distance from Earth to the Sun. So, 138 AUs means that it's 138 times further than Earth is from the Sun right now. That's a really big number, over 12 billion miles to be exact. As for Voyager 2, despite it launching before Voyager 1 by 16 days, it was set on a similar mission to explore the solar system, albeit via a different route that took it past Neptune and Uranus. The point here is that these two probes are the furthest things that humanity has sent into the solar system. They have traveled incredible distances and are still revealing things about our solar system that continue to both boggle the mind and astound us. Voyager 2 is now in interstellar space, a crowning achievement in and of itself. But that doesn't mean it's been all smooth sailing. Far from it in certain ways. Technical difficulties. In February 2020, it was noted by NASA that something had gone wrong with Voyager 2. And as such, they had problems getting it to work properly. Given that the probe is in space, that humanity hasn't touched, and will likely not touch themselves for a long time, this is to be expected. However, a few days after that announcement, they revealed to the world that they had stabilized the problems on the craft and got it back up and working. But what exactly caused the problems of the probe? Well, that would be a failed maneuver. Voyager 2 was supposed to do a rotation move that would shut off some of its instruments and thus conserve power. However, for whatever reason, the probe didn't do it. And because of that, the scientific instruments that were on at the time remained on, which made it so that the probe eventually shut down prematurely. Not something you want to happen in the reaches of interstellar space when anything can happen in the blink of an eye. This failure could have been catastrophic, because you see, to ensure that the probe would have a long life in space, it was given the bare essentials in many aspects, including its power supply. Believe it or not, despite being in space for over 42 years, the Voyager 2 doesn't have the biggest power supply. It actually uses radioactive fuel to produce heat, and thus power. But to conserve that power, it shuts off non-essential systems when it's not using them. So, for the move to fail caused a serious drain in power, and likely sent NASA into quite a frenzy as they tried to make it work once again. Thankfully for them, on February 5th, 2020, they were able to connect with Voyager 2 once again, and confirmed that it was up and running and able to continue its scientific mission in regards to examining and studying interstellar space. Voyager 2 has returned to normal operations following the anomaly on January 25, 2020, NASA officials wrote in a statement. The 5 operating science instruments, which were turned off by the spacecraft's fault protection routine, are back on and returning normal science data. A long way away. To give you some context as to how dramatic that is in terms of time and space, at present, it takes a signal from NASA to the Voyager 2, or vice versa, about 17 hours. Which means that Voyager 2 is indeed one of the farthest man-made objects in space right now. It's almost as far in space as Voyager 1. That means if NASA asked Voyager 2 something and it replied, it would take about a day and a half for NASA to get its answer. That makes it 122 times greater in distance from the Earth than the Sun is, or 122 AUs. At this point, you're wondering just how far this can go in terms of Voyager 2 and its mission. After all, it's been out in space for over 40 years. Surely it has a limit, right? And you're correct. There is indeed a limit to what the Voyager 2 can do, as this glitch in the system has proven definitively. But in terms of how long it can continue in space and collecting data, the over-under is about 5 years. But think about that. That's 5 more years of data. That's 5 more years of collecting information about a part of space that humanity hasn't even grasped before, or gotten deep enough scans of before. That 5 years may seem small in the grand scale of its life, but even one of those years could have a major impact on how we observe the solar system at large. But given its age, you might wonder, what exactly does it have left to study the universe with? A good question. As of March 2020, the Voyager 2 probe has 5 scientific instruments on board that are still functioning, and thus can help inform NASA and others about the universe. It has a device that can scan magnetic fields, it has 2 instruments that can help figure out things about cosmic rays and particles, and the final 2 instruments are able to detect and study plasma. Why are these instruments important? Well, it's because of where Voyager 2 is: interstellar space. Interstellar readings. While we have some idea of what is going on in our own solar system, once you reach interstellar space, all bets are off. We can look at that region of space via our satellites and probes, but to know what's going on there, you need to have someone or something on the inside. And that is the Voyager probes. There are a lot of questions of what happens in this area of space, mainly because it's directly outside the heliosphere, or the area of space that our own sun affects and doesn't have another star affecting it. Thus why it's an in-between area of the galaxy, and space is full of these dead zones, if you will, which is why we need to study them. In fact, this was one of the biggest reasons we knew that the Voyager 2 had entered interstellar space. As the probe had been studying the particles of the sun and the cosmic rays of space as it traveled through our solar system. And when it reached interstellar space, the particles given off by the sun plummeted, while the cosmic rays rose in great number, signifying that the reach of the sun had been outpaced and the rays that fill up space were now in full view. Time limit. This glitch could be a sign of more things to come in terms of issues. It cannot be stated enough that both of the Voyager probes are past their use-by date. The people operating the probes have been improvising in order to keep them operational as they are right now, which is why Voyager 2 is only running 5 scientific instruments instead of all of the ones it has equipped. They need to conserve power. Should the Voyager 2 be lost, it would be a terrible loss for the scientific community given all that it has offered over the years. And of course, barring some great advancement in technology, it would take an incredibly long time, like 40 years or so, to get another probe or entity to that point where the Voyager 2 died in order to pick up where it left off. Not impossible, just time-consuming, which is another reason why NASA is trying so hard to keep the Voyager 2 alive at all costs. Because if it dies, they'll be stuck in regards to trying to collect more data from that region of space. Hope is not lost yet, and NASA will continue to push things forward, including going and making the next version of a Voyager probe, as is China, apparently. And thus, even if one of these probes goes down, we will still have all they have shown us up to that point to build off of in the future. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at Voyager 2 and the highs and lows of its era in space? Do you think that scientists will continue to make things work on the Voyager 2 craft until it's totally unusable? What do you think the next Voyager-style craft will be like? What discoveries might they make? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on the channel.